Today's episode is presented by Loanspark, the fee experts.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Lending Leaders. We have a great guest today, Michael Barnett, CEO and founder at Loanspark. I'm excited. He is not only a lending leader, but in a slightly different space than we talk about a lot, which is commercial lending. So it's something I think really applicable right now. And Michael, I'm really excited to have you on and chat about all the things that you do over at Loanspark.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it. Excited to talk about what Loanspark is doing and how we're helping mortgage brokers understand business lending, especially commercial lending. So glad to be here.
Great. So you have quite a bit of mortgage experience prior to all this. So we'd love to hear about your journey kind of through mortgage and into Loanspark.
Yes, actually, my first real job out of college was working in mortgage. This was, I'll date myself, but this was back in 2002, where I started in the mortgage industry for PHH, actually, a company that many of us and many of you will likely know. Started that company as a mortgage salesperson, but at that moment in history, the mortgage industry was booming because interest rates had just come down from, I think they were in the 10s, then they went down to the 7s and then down to the 6s. And then that's when I joined. Things were going haywire. So at that time I joined as a salesperson, but they forced all of us to process loans for the first year before we could be put into the sales role just because it was so busy. So that's
probably a great foundation for you though.
Exactly. It was great learning experience. I spent 10 years of my life bleeding for PHH and moving it around the company at multiple levels of the organization, inside sales as an outside loan officer, inside sales as a loan officer, as a manager, sales manager, director, etc. But spent a good amount of time of my life on the consumer side of mortgage.
So then what brought you to Loanspark? What got you from consumers to commercial or small business?
That is a longer story. Not sure we have enough time to kind of go through the whole jump. But what I will say is after 10 years in mortgage, I was motivated by my now wife to just make a change, make a switch, look for something different where I can use my transferable skills to improve my career. And back then, I mean, we're talking it's 2001. So this is around 2009, 2010, a couple years after the 2008 crash. Things were still, let's call it rocky in the mortgage industry. So it was easier for me to make the jump then. But so I decided to make the change from mortgage to commercial lending. It wasn't at that time commercial mortgage lending. It was commercial lending for businesses.
Got it.
So I had left PHH at that time. I had joined a company called On Deck Capital. On Deck was a very, very small company. At the time, I think there was 40 of us. Fast forward 4 years later, we had IPO'd that company with almost 1,000 employees in a over $1 billion valuation. So it was a great decision moving from mortgage into the business side. From On Deck, I then pivoted into, I started a company with a couple of individuals who had worked for me at the time. And that was kind of my first foray into the commercial lending company that was outside of, let's say, working for another large company. So I'd started that company with some individuals, ended up exiting that company, and then founded Loanspark in 2021.
So what's the problem that Loanspark solves for and who they solve it for?
Absolutely. So we solve distinct problems. The first problem is small business owners looking for a loan to improve their business. Improve their business for one reason or another. It's very difficult for them to find a trusted, reliable who, quite frankly, isn't going to pull the wool over their eyes. So the goal with building Loanspark as an organization that is here to provide small businesses fair capital, our goal was to do it the right way. And the fair, trusted way with good prices a way where we are very transparent in terms of communicating how loans work, why they work, the things that most companies just don't take the time to explain. We do all of that.
Yeah.
So that's the first problem we're looking to solve: fair funding for small businesses, which is really hard to find. Number one.
Trust me, I agree with you there. Yeah.
As a business owner, I'm sure you're aware
someone who's
of
bootstrapped a company and always want to. My biggest goal is, and my wife has made this very clear to me. She's like, "You better not use our house as collateral. Like we're not playing those games, right?" So keeping funding in the business and isolated is always a big concern of mine, and something that I've been really careful of. I'm not going to be the bank for my business. That's what banks are. So
that's one piece of advice that we give to business owners is keep your primary residence and your business separate.
Yeah.
A lot of business owners want to use the equity in their homes, take a line of credit, et cetera, et cetera. We don't advise that for business purposes. So the second issue that we were looking to solve is the partnership challenge, where there are tons and tons and tons and tons of organizations who want to provide a recommendation to their customers as to who they should be working with for a loan. Right. It could be a bank, it could be a merchant processing company, it could be a loan officer who wants to be able to recommend the bank or the funding organization or the institution to go to for your commercial loan, business loan, consumer loan, what have you. So what Loanspark has done is we've answered the question of, where do you refer your client to? Well, you can refer your client to Loanspark as a referral, or you can refer the client to yourself.
Right.
Because Loanspark enables organizations to essentially become a lender.
Yep.
Right. Behind the scenes, it's Loanspark doing all the work. It's Loanspark's technology and people, but it is the referral party's brand that Loanspark is representing. So it's like a white label relationship.
Yeah, I was about to say the white labeling consumer lending version, folks. And that's actually when we chatted last week in preparation for this, I didn't realize that we actually have very similar clients. So despite being in residential versus consumer, a lot of the folks that we serve, a lot of folks listening to this podcast can utilize Loanspark because it now allows you as a lending institute, bank, credit union, mortgage company to say, hey, we now have ABC Bank small business loans.
Correct. And so that's the second problem that we've solved. And we've been solving this for regional banks, mortgage companies, mortgage brokers, account CAs, merchant processing organizations. Those are who we've been solving this challenge for lately.
And what I think in this market right now, a thing that we see a lot of these lenders doing is, let's diversify, right? Let's get commercial loans, VA loans, FHA loans, whatever it may be. We need as many as possible, right? And then you ultimately just spread too thin, jack of all trades, master of none. What mistakes have you seen when lenders try to do this themselves without necessarily bringing on the right partners?
Well, I've seen this mostly on the brokered side, not as much on the lender side. And I think we can all agree, when we as individuals or as an individual try to do too much, that oftentimes causes breakdowns in the relationship with our customer. Because if we try to do everything and we don't really understand those products really well, and it isn't the lifeblood of our company, there's going to be challenges, communications challenges. Maybe you get a bad review because something happened and that could have been avoided if you were the expert there.
Right.
Where on the Loanspark side, like these commercial products, that's what we do. That's who we are.
Right.
We are commercial lending, bar none, through and through. If a customer came to us requesting a consumer loan, do we have the knowledge to probably do it?
Right.
Maybe, probably. But we're not going to try. We're going to say no, or recommend them to the bank, or recommend they contact their mortgage broker, or whomever the case may be. In that case,
that's always a hard-earned lesson for any small business, right? Learning to say no.
Right. Exactly.
And one of the things you focus on that I really like, I noticed on LinkedIn, is the education piece. So educating small businesses on where they can get loans, how funding looks like. How do you approach that? Because in my opinion, that's one of the biggest problems in commercial lending, residential lending, is education of what am I paying for? What does this look like? And I think most companies, probably ourselves included, do a pretty crappy job of it.
Well, because our products and programs have they can be complex for the business owner. Think about if you're a business owner who owns a bakery, and what do you do all day? You bake donuts and bread and things of that nature.
Yep.
We can't expect you to be an expert in business lending. So we take it upon us to ensure that that client understands the nuts and bolts of, one, what they're applying for, two, what they've been approved for, and three, how it all works. Now, when you translate that concept to the consumer mortgage industry, well, what is the one thing that we have in consumer mortgages that seemingly helps a customer understand like what they're being offered and what they're going to pay and what they're going to get? Well, there's two things. There's that good faith estimate document, right? There's the TIL, the truth in lending disclosure documents, which kind of explain it. And on the mortgage side, it's probably a little bit, I don't want to call it easier, but because mortgages are very similar. From one mortgage to the next, the documents are the same.
Right.
But in the commercial side, I mean, if you're applying for a line of credit or a term loan or an SBA loan or a receivables financing or a factor, like there is no universal disclosure for any of these products. And it actually wouldn't make sense that there would be, just because each product and program has their own complexities. Where on a mortgage, is it fixed or is it adjustable? Right? Is it so there aren't as many complexities.
They always say the consumer wants to know three things: my monthly payment, my interest rate, so they can brag about it, and cash to close. How much money do I need up front? Right.
Exactly.
And if you have an adjustable or a line of credit, right, you don't even know any of those things, and that interest rate can float. I don't even know what interest rate my line of credit is for our business right now. I just know that I get a lot of things into the mail when it changes. But
so, and when you add to that mix a commercial mortgage, well, there are different types of commercial mortgages. There's commercial mortgages on buildings. There's commercial mortgages on residential homes. And there's commercial mortgages on land. So,
well, when I thought commercial lending, my mind went to office buildings, right? Things like that. So that was like in all the for rent signs I see whenever I drive around, right? That's kind of the area that I thought originally when I hear commercial real estate.
Right. So there's complexities. So we take it upon us to ensure that our borrower, they know the things that you mentioned. What's my rate? What's my cash to close? And what's my payment? But then there's more to the equation than just that as well.
And something you talk a lot about that I honestly don't quite understand what it is embedded lending is a term I see you using all the time. What exactly is that? How are you all leveraging that? What should people know about embedded lending?
So embedded lending is this hot new catchphrase, if you will, that a lot of companies use. Some companies truly do offer embedded lending, and other companies it's just a catchphrase. At Loanspark, we offer true embedded lending, and then I guess we also offer the hybrid embedded lending. So what embedded lending is when you are, as a company, so for example, your organization, when you partner with a third party that essentially embeds their technology into your technology, where now your customers can come to you to get loans. It really is embedded lending. Like it embeds it inside of something else. Essentially, Loanspark embeds our lending experience, our lending technology, our lending products and programs into any organization. And we have a number of ways that we can do that. We can either do that with an app experience. So with a few lines of code, you can take our code, embed it into your code.
Right. In our calculator, we can say, do you want a loan right now?
Right. Yeah. Customer can apply for a loan right there on a website or inside of a portal. But then we have this hybrid approach for those who aren't super tech centric, who maybe don't have a development team, don't have a developer, or just don't want it to be inside of an app. We can essentially just provide a button. Then you put it on your website And when someone wants to apply for lending, they click on the button
right there.
and that button goes right to the Loanspark experience, branded as Loanspark or branded as you, depending on how you want to set it up.
So the folks that don't really do embedded lending, they do something like that. If their embedded lending is a link, right? And then they're just on that kind of website of whoever the lender actually is.
It's a link, or maybe, and sometimes there is no link. It's just a referral type of thing where they provide
talk to Steve,
a portal or fill in a lead form, and that can be kind of called embedded lending, but it's not exactly embedded.
Got it. Well, good. I did not know about that, so I was happy to have learned something today. So what's next for commercial lending, commercial real estate? What's next for SMB lending? Like, what are you most excited about over the next year or so?
I'm most excited about rates going down. That's
fair enough.
That's what we're looking for.
Because
as I think we all know who are listening to this podcast, we're in this weird place right now where rates are high, property values are high, and what does that do? It slows down the buying. And so what do we all want as individuals who can provide mortgages? We want buying to increase. But what I really would like is I would like consumer mortgage brokers to not be afraid of the commercial lending side of the business. Through partnering with companies like Loanspark, or even trying to educate yourself more on what commercial is and how it works. It's an opportunity for us to all make more money and expand our businesses. And there's a big opportunity in commercial right now. Loanspark is on the forefront of that opportunity, and we can see that opportunity based upon our partnership with hundreds of mortgage brokers across the country. Actually, it's more than 1,000 mortgage brokers across the country. We see the demand for commercial continually to increase. So as a consumer mortgage broker, I think it just makes sense for you to at least, your toe in the water on the commercial side, just because it's a great way to sort of supplement your business.
Especially by going through a partner too. You're not building out, you're not adding staff, you're not, building out the same fixed costs that you would have to offer it yourself. So obviously there's benefits there. And I think one thing that I think of commercial real estate, I think of empty office buildings and, a looming really depression in that space right now, right? And it seems like small business lending is not that, right? It operates very differently. And small businesses are very much the lifeblood of our economy.
That's correct. So yes, you are right that most, when they hear of commercial lending, they do think of empty office buildings or distressed office buildings. And don't get me wrong, office building finance is a segment of commercial lending, but commercial lending is a very, very large industry, and office buildings are just a very small part of it.
Makes sense. Well, happy to see aspects of that industry doing really well now. And obviously small business lending and small businesses getting funding is super important and something I'm super passionate about. I know figuring out what that looks like on our 11-year journey has been a lot. So can definitely speak to that. So last question we ask everyone, Michael, is what is your lodestar? So what is a lodestar? Is a guiding light, something that inspires us? What makes you want to do this work? It's clear that Loanspark has a mission to it in addition to just paying the bills every month, keeping the lights on.
Well, Loanspark and Michael Barnett, we'd like to go down in history as the largest, most successful commercial lending business that actually did it the right way. The right way is by taking care of its customers. And that means more to me than anything else. That's why we started this business, is because we noticed that customers just weren't being treated correctly, customers being the borrowers. There was a definite lack of borrower education, receiving, and then of course, moving forward with loans of all types. And we want to be known as the company that took on the challenge and who, at least in our little section of the universe, solved the problem.
So I think that's great. I mean, from talking to you, it's clear that you have a passion about this, a desire to help people. And a very clear set of principles of what you're willing to do and not do. And I think it's something lending in general sorely needs. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today and let everyone see that.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for listening. Please follow us, and more to come with our season wrapping up. So excited to keep you all posted on that. Thanks.